Okay, seeing that it's 4:30 p.m., I'd like to call the meeting of the Tecumseh Police Services Board to order. First of all, a roll call. All members except our chair, Chris Hales, who's unable to attend tonight, but I'm sure Chris will be watching us live streaming somewhere. Very dedicated individual. So, for disclosure of pecuniary interest, is there any disclosure from anybody on the board tonight? Hearing none, that'll be in the minutes. Approval of the agenda. Everybody's had a chance to take a look at the agenda. Could I get a motion that the agenda for the Police Services Board meeting dated Monday, December the 4th, 2023, as duplicated and delivered but to the members thereof, be accepted? Can I get a mover? Mark Gomes, seconder, Mayor McNamara. Approval of the previous board minutes. Everybody's had a chance. Is there any comments or corrections? Anybody notes from the minutes that were distributed? Seeing none, could I have a motion that the regular minutes of the November 6th, 2023 Police Services Board meeting as duplicated and delivered to the members therein be adopted? Moved by Councillor Tennille, seconded by Mark Gomes. All in favor? We'll now move to, we do have a delegation tonight, so thank you very much. And I guess I'd like to welcome Michelle Oak, who is the manager of the Windsor-Essex Regional Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. I won't use the acronym for that. That's too big for me to remember. And also Mr. Stephen Lynn, who's the manager of social policy and planning for the city of Windsor. You come forward, and I understand you have a presentation for the board.
Good afternoon, Chair and board members. Thank you for having us here today to talk about the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. It's been a while, I've been told, since you've had a progress update. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a refresher about the development of the plan and where we're at with implementation. Next slide, please. So in 2018, the provincial government made amendments to the Police Services Act. These amendments mandated that every municipality in Ontario develop and implement a community safety and well-being plan. The City of Windsor and the municipality of Essex came together with organizations and different sectors to regionally create a focused plan that would leverage existing strengths, resources, and best practices to establish a proactive approach to identified risks in the communities. So the ministry gave this framework here, and it says that there are 4 intervention areas, and these are social development, prevention, risk intervention, and at the core is incident response. So this is the framework that the Windsor-Essex Regional Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan was based off of. Next slide, please. Based on this framework and in consultation with the community, and over 1,900 community members were involved in the consultation process, 4 priority areas were established. These 4 priority areas are the first one being good governance and data, the second being engaged and safe communities, the third is mental health and substance use supports, and the 4th is financial security and economic equity. Each priority has 2 goals and up to 3 initiatives per goal. So in total, there are 8 goals that have been set and 17 initiatives that were established in order to achieve the goals. Next slide, please. I should mention too that this is a 4-year plan that was put in place. And so the plan goes from 2022 to 2026. And guiding the plan is the Regional Systems Leadership Table, or the RSLT. And currently, the RSLT is moving from an in development of the plan phase to a new RSLT, or a new leadership team, which is put together to really implement the Windsor-Essex Regional Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. And the purpose of the leadership table is to act as a consultative body for the implementation of the team and support the team's objectives and make new partnerships in the community and look for funding opportunities. Next slide, please. So here we have an overview of the community safety and well-being projects. And this is based off of the funding model that we have in place. So we have implementation funds that are used as the corporation where they are the recipient. So the City of Windsor holds these funds. And the first funding stream is what we call the Community Investment Fund. And we're very thankful for this fund because it's 50% or $50,000 from the City of Windsor and $50,000 from the County of Essex. And these funds are used to fill gaps in the funding model of the plan. Because the plan, although it was implemented and mandated by the province does not supply funding for the implementation activities. So the remainder of the activities, we have grants, and we're partnering with other community organizations to have grants complete and execute the implementation activities. However, the Community Investment Fund, as you can see, we are able to utilize on an annual basis from municipal funding to implement activities like training, awareness initiatives, events, walks, safety walks that we'll get into a little bit later, communication plans, social policy reviews. And again, we'll get into these in a little bit more detail in the next couple of slides. The next large funding source that the City of Windsor is holding the funding in order to implement the plan. And again, this is color coded by those priorities. So you can see that the blue that coordinates with the Engaged and Safe Communities priority. And with regards to the Building Safer Community Fund, the City of Windsor just received, and it was just announced in the media, $2.7 million, $2.7 million to support the prevention of youth gun and gang violence. So a couple of things that we have going on currently with this is the development of a regional crime prevention council and a call for proposals, which was also just launched and is closing on December 12th. We'll get into that a little bit more in the next slides as well. We're also supporting organizations like New Beginnings and Youth Diversion to help prevent youth gun and gang violence. And those organizations are receiving funding to not only expand their current programs geographically, but they're expanding the RIP program and Youth Diversion's Rebound program by age as well. So these programs previously only targeted youth. However, we're extending that reach to those up to 26 years old and those as young as 6 years old. So we're expanding by age as well as geographically. The next funding source is a partnership that we have with St. Clair College. WeSpark grant was recently we're partnering to evaluate the HIFIS system, which is a homelessness individuals and families information system. So I should clarify, this is a federally organized system and implemented system. We are not actually evaluating the system, but we're evaluating internal controls like training that are related to the HIFIS system. We are also replanning and trying to develop the beginning stages of a data consortium project, and that will likely be a partnership amongst community organizations in the future. The final project I have listed up there is the SNAP grant, which stands for Substance Supports in Neighborhoods Access through Police Partnerships. This partnership with Windsor Police, the City of Windsor, and the Health Unit seeks to address substance use and crime through a coordinated public education and training strategy. There have been a number of community engagement events that have taken place. A communications plan is in place as well, and the development of that is ongoing, and an education campaign is coming in the future. Next slide, please. So here I have aligned some of the current project activities that I discussed and color coded there with the 4 priorities that the plan has outlined. And I have listed the activities that are being completed on an itemized basis. What you can see and take home from this slide is that in total, there are 19 project activities on the go, and they are addressing 7 of the 8 goals and 10 of the 17 initiatives outlined in the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Next slide, please. Here again, I have listed the priorities and the actual goals, all 8 of them, and the 17 initiatives. So by the end of 2025, all of these initiatives should be addressed. Next slide, please. So this is the exciting part, events and good news. We have in the past, since 2022 until today, we have completed a number of events and taken part in the planning of a number of events with our partners. And there are some good news stories on the horizon as well. Next slide, please. Some of you may recall that in 2022, there was a safety and crime prevention walk hosted in Tecumseh. This walk was also hosted in Leamington, Essex, and Harrow. And this was really the start of the safety and crime prevention walk pilot project, which ended up being such a success that is no longer a pilot, and it is something that we are doing in municipalities and hope that municipalities will take it upon themselves to complete these on an ongoing and as needed basis. In 2022, the Festival of Guest Nations and Public Safety Information Day was also attended and supported by the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. We also attended this again this year, 2023. It was on September 17th at Seacliff Park. It was really a great event. There was food, dancing, lots of opportunities to engage with locals and raise awareness about the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. We hope that, although we were planning to do another walk in Leamington on this date, we hope that we will be able to schedule one in the future, probably in the spring. Next slide, please. More recently, we have, through the SNAP grant, collaborated with the Downtown Windsor Community Collaborative to host a series of community engagement events. The goal of these events was to foster a deeper understanding of the community needs and gather valuable input from community members. One of the main things that we were trying to do at these events were to make police in the neighborhoods more approachable by residents, so that if there was an issue, they know who to go to and they feel confident and comfortable reaching out. Events were attended. Each event, there were 4 community engagement events that were hosted over the summer, one at Bruce Park, Mitchell Park, Weigel Park, and the Glengarry Complex. Each of these events was attended by approximately 200 residents, neighborhood residents. There was also, through this grant, we hosted trauma and crisis intervention training. And this was targeted at service providers. And the goal was to teach service providers essential skills to manage crisis and provide vital support when they are engaging in those situations where clients can become angry or there is some sort of trauma elicited. Next slide, please. On Thursday, November 2nd, we held a downtown Windsor neighborhood safety walk. And we, again, hope to schedule one of these in Leamington and LaSalle in 2024. These walks are actually based off of CPTED principles, which is crime prevention through environmental design. And shortly after this walk, there was a 2-day CPTED workshop and training that took place at the Chicharo Club. And this training was open to community members, municipalities. We had a number of OPP officers, Windsor police officers attend. And the goal was for them to become more aware of crime prevention through environmental design. And hopefully, with regards to the OPP officers that attended, we would like to have them help facilitate a future walk in the county. Next slide, please. Going back to the Building Safer Communities Fund, which was that $2.7 million grant from Public Safety Canada that the City of Windsor recently announced. There is a call for proposals that was recently launched, and the call for proposals is looking at organizations to submit a proposal so that they can help prevent youth gun and gang violence in some capacity. The call for proposals is open until December 12th. Next slide, please. Community Spotlight. This is a new agenda item when we look at the governing body for the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. We have the Regional Systems Leadership Table that I touched on a little bit earlier. We recently added a new agenda item to these quarterly meetings, and it is called the Community Spotlight. And we're hoping that, we know that many organizations in the community are working towards community safety and well-being on an ongoing basis. This is not just something that, we are doing as project managers. So we want to invite them to our meeting for 10-minute presentation to hear about what they're doing and how we can help support them moving forward. Next slide, please. And our goal overall is a community where everyone feels safe, has a sense of belonging, equitable access to services and opportunities, and can have their needs met across Windsor and Essex County. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I'll just ask if there are any questions from board members.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for certainly the presentation in that. The 2.7 million as just announced. If I got you right, December 12th submissions have to be made, and this is December 4th. I think we've got 6 days. It's pretty difficult to reach out there, and I mean, obviously I'm going to be looking at our police officers here, but timing is very difficult. Hopefully there's some wiggle room in terms of the ability to maybe go beyond that, because by the time we reach out to our own stakeholders within the community, that's in 6 days or 6 or 7 days in a week. So I don't know when that was available, but I'm a little disappointed in the timing on that. The other is a question in terms of if you go back to the one slide where you, I don't know which slide it would be. I've got it here in my own computer, where you've got the Implementation Funds Corporation and the partner and recipients, and underneath you have St. Clair College, and the other one is Windsor Police Services and the Windsor Essex County Health Unit. We're not policed by Windsor. We're policed by the Ontario Provincial Police. And is there an opportunity or certainly some collaboration between, Windsor Essex County Health Unit is regional, which every municipality, and including the city and Pelee Island. Why isn't the OPP, part of that process? Because they do actually 5 of our municipalities and plus the 401.
Mr. Mayor, I'll answer your question because I was part of the foundational pieces to these grants prior to Michelle joining. I'll first address the question with respect to the Building Safer Communities Fund. So Public Safety Canada reached out to the City of Windsor announcing that we were eligible for the funding. And we made a case that the funding should be regional in nature. So we had to make a business case that the funding could go for all of Essex County instead of just Windsor, as we were originally granted. So we had to come up with a business case, which we used the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, all the efforts that went into the development of it. And we submitted to the federal government and they approved it so we could expand the services. So that 2.7 could stretch it outside of Windsor into all of Essex County. Unfortunately, what happened was the service agreement between Public Safety Canada and the Corporation of the City of Windsor was signed in year 2 of the 4-year grant by the time we got it. So we were already behind a year in deploying funds. So we entered into direct agreements with New Beginnings and Youth Diversions, as Michelle had mentioned, to expand the geographic locations so that they could go into other municipalities, they were currently restricted, and expand the age ranges. The call for proposals that closes on December 12th is just a reality of administrative timelines of pushing out the RFP. And we had a series of meetings with Public Safety Canada to see if we could extend funding into multiple years because of the delays that weren't able to get the money out the door because of the service agreement. And unfortunately, we were told that we had to try to meet those deadlines and getting it out this year. Unfortunately, it had to be done because of an amendment to our service agreement with the federal government. So we understand that timelines are poor being in the holidays. We have done our best to utilize both social media, joint press releases with the County of Essex, 211 e-blasts, tapping partners on the shoulders. And the funding for this isn't eligible for policing services. It's for community nonprofits. And that's really our aim. So the Building Safer Communities funds, unfortunately, it would be nice if we could have a formal partnership with the police services, but they're right off the hop ineligible. So we hope that we are going to get a decent response for that fund, but I certainly understand that the timing of it, especially being around the holidays, isn't ideal. With respect to your second point regarding the delivery of funds, what's complicated is all these different funding streams and where they come from. And so the St. Clair College and the Windsor Police and the Health Unit, that is a partnership from the Community Safety and Policing grant that the Ministry of the Solicitor General released a couple of years ago. And so the Windsor Police actually was the grant holder and submitted that grant, and they had tapped the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan on the shoulder to identify the plan as a partner in that. So we are definitely open to future submissions and partnerships with LaSalle Police and OPP. And so this was, again, where the municipalities aren't eligible for that community safety and policing funds. That's strictly policing services are eligible for it. And so we were tapped on the shoulder as a partner, and that's what was identified in the slide. So by no means we want to be as collaborative and with all of the police services that we can partner with. And in fact, we had tapped for the Building Safer Communities Fund, going back to the Public Safety Canada, we had collaborated with OPP, LaSalle Police, and Windsor Police to identify the recipients, New Beginnings and Youth Diversions, prior to any engagement, to say, we're not the experts in policing and preventing guns and gang violence. And we had a series of meetings to make sure that these were the right organizations that the funding should go to, trying to do our due diligence, because we identified and rooted in best practices to make sure that they were driven by data, by evidence before we deployed any funding.
Okay, well, I understand in terms of the Windsor policing, through that policing grant, and thank you for that. But on the other, obviously, I see like the bridge out of Leamington and many others could really benefit from this. Even some of our own programs for youth within the own, from our community, we see a lot of vandalism in our parks and a whole host of things. So it's just it's really unfortunate that our federal partners, for whatever reason, don't see how difficult it is, to engage those organizations to do a timely and a effective application that makes sense for, the various communities that are there. I guess we're going to do our best to try to figure this out, but again, I look at administration and saying, hey, let's throw that on their shoulders to try to find some ability. One thing for sure is I hate leaving money on the shelf. I think, and sometimes, the timing itself, it's regrettable that you have to do it because of the fact that you just can't do things in a timely fashion. But anyway, I thank you for, first of all, coming here. And I think it would be maybe also an opportunity maybe to do it over not so much a year and a half or 2 years, but come visit us. We're not that far away. And to continue to give us those updates and it's good for our community to know that their tax dollars are, I know you talk about the county, but the county doesn't exist without us, the lower tier. And so it's good to get that information out and to let them know exactly what this whole program is all about, because I know we're trying to find our way through this. It's a new plan. It's unique. I think it's a great opportunity for us. And I still believe that the regional concept is the right thing to do. And certainly in that regards, but I'd be remiss again if I didn't say I was disappointed in terms of the timing.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, then I'd like to thank, on behalf of the board, you, both you, Michelle and Stephen, for coming here tonight and updating us on this. The amount of work and, just tonight, but the amount of different organizations and all trying to coordinate that and the types of grants and who the money's going, wow, what a job to try and to wade through that. And I guess it shows the need of a community, the plan, and trying to pull all this together in some focused approaches. So, thank you very much, and say for your work and your diligence and for coming here tonight. I know you must be, from what we see, is certainly very busy in your thing, and you're certainly welcome to stay, but I can understand too that you might have other things to do doing that. But again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to receive the report that was presented by our delegation.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Cornell? Cornell.
Roll that out.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. So everybody's getting ready. We can continue. We now have the OPP monthly report, and we also have a guest with the OPP, Superintendent, I'll get it right, Liptrot. I'm pronouncing that right, correct? And I guess for the report, Superintendent, you could kick it off.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me here today and allowing me to speak. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I met a few of you last week at the Zone 6 meeting, however, not everyone. And I'm new to old to the West region. I started my career 27 years ago in Woodstock. I spent my uniform time in Oxford County and then proceeded to spend a number of years in our criminal operations, both in our West Region Criminal Operations Program and also in our Organized Crime Enforcement Bureau. In 2015, I became the detachment commander when I was promoted to inspector in Brant County. Spent 2.5 years as a detachment commander in Brant County before going to our criminal investigation branch, where I spent the last 5 years major case managing major crimes within Ontario. Happy to come back to West Region this January as the crime manager for our criminal operations, and in June promoted to the rank of superintendent. Being a superintendent in West Region, I oversee our Syndicate 1, we call it, and which encompasses Essex County, Lambton County, Middlesex County, and Elgin and Chatham, and also the portfolio of our criminal operations. So I've been down to Essex County a number of times this year, meeting with various members, including the two I'm sitting here, Inspector Ferguson and Staff Sergeant Smith. And I look forward to working down in Essex County in the future. And thank you for allowing me to come here today.
Thank you and welcome. Nice to meet you. Inspector or Jamie, or who's going to do the Inspector Ferguson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that. I'm going to go over the October Police Services Board report, the summary. If we could go down to the top calls for service. One more page. Thank you. In looking at Tecumseh's top calls for service that we saw in October, same top 2 calls for service that we saw in September, that we see in October, which are motor vehicle collisions and traffic complaints, similar to what our other municipalities are seeing. We also saw property checks in our top 10 calls for service. We did see them in September as well, but they were not as high as they are currently here. Traffic enforcement and ride checks are always in our top calls for service as well. What we do see still is alarm and bylaw calls. Both of them have gone down slightly from the last report. We do see new in the October report for Tecumseh. We do see family disputes and mental health calls for service, which I will speak to the mental health calls for service later in the report. What we don't see on the top calls for service are 911 calls as well as theft calls. If we can go to the next page with total calls for service. Tecumseh had a slight decrease in calls for service again this month. We had a decrease last month. Overall, we have a 2% increase for calls for service this October. But we saw the decrease in Tecumseh as well. So the year to date, we're approximately 6% up on our calls for service. So just over 33,000 calls that our officers for Essex County OPP have done so far this year. In looking at our violent crime section for October, Tecumseh had a large increase in September, if you recall, but we're down just by 1 occurrence for this October. We still see a 37% decrease overall across most of our communities and an increase of 5% year to date. In looking at the property crime section, as I mentioned in the top calls for service, Staff Sergeant Smith's group has been working hard at the property checks, which is why I believe we don't see the theft calls in the top 10 calls for service. We do still have 38 calls for service in property crime. September had increased, October has gone back down in a bit of a decrease there. So year to date, we are down 10% for the property crimes calls for service. In looking at the motor vehicle collisions for October, as you'll see, Tecumseh really only had 4 less collisions than we had last October, the same time. We did launch our second collision reporting center down in Leamington in the last couple of months. So it's diverting additional calls for service away from the front line to those collision reporting centers to free up officers' time there. You'll see that 65 collisions were diverted in the month of October. Down below, we had no motor vehicle fatalities in Tecumseh, although we did have 1 down on Highway 77 in October. Looking at our impaired and exceed offenses, there were 4 in October this year for Tecumseh. Overall, 23 impaired occurrences, 4 of them in Tecumseh. Last month we saw 3. It is an alarming increase both months of impaired operation. Overall, year to date, we're 61% higher than what we normally would see. We did launch our festive ride initiative on November the 16th. You will see officers out conducting ride checks both day and night. And again, thank you to Staff Sergeant Smith's team for those increased rides.
Through you, Mr. Chair, on the impaired, I mean, that is kind of ringing the bells here compared to the numbers. Is there, are they a mix of alcohol and then, or impaired through drugs or cannabis, for example?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the board, it is a mixture. Primarily, it is alcohol related at this time, and a number of the October occurrences involved collisions. Moving on to the suspensions down below. So you'll see that the total suspensions in the county are 33. 23 of those are the impaireds. So we are still seeing an additional number of suspensions that have to do with 3-day suspensions or stunt driving. Year to date, our suspensions are up 18%. We're going to continue with those enforcements in rides as well as media campaigns and education. In looking at the criminal code and the YCJA charges, in Tecumseh, we saw it increase only by 4 occurrences, but there is an increase overall across our entire county for those criminal code charges in October this year compared to last, as well as a 22% increase year to date. In looking at those charges, 0 of them were youth charges for Tecumseh. In looking at the drug occurrences down below, you'll see that Tecumseh had the 3 cannabis charges for the month of October. And then if we go to the POA, thank you. So there is a 16.8% increase in provincial offenses this October compared to last, and officers are writing an average of 19 tickets a day compared to the 16 from last year. Overall, year to date, there is that increase of about 24% in our provincial offenses. And down below, you will see the traffic enforcement for stops, tickets, and warnings, and a recorded vehicle stop of 25 per day. In the mental health section, there is a 47% increase in mental health calls for service that we saw in October this year compared to last October. There is a slight decrease in mental health calls overall, but you'll see that Tecumseh specifically had an increase from 7 to 17 occurrences compared to last year. Our youth crisis response team did respond to 37 calls for service to dealing with mental health this October. And year to date, they're at almost 300 calls for service. So that youth crisis response is very active in all of our communities. And we're very pleased that there was additional funding provided to allow us to have a mobile crisis response member on weekends as well. So we are back to 7-day coverage for that. In the last page there, you'll see our 911 misdials. Like I said, they're not even hitting the top 10 calls for service in Tecumseh anymore. So I'm very grateful for that. And the media campaigns that we sent out to remind people to stay on the phone if they accidentally call 911 has really brought our numbers down there. So thank you for that. False alarms are down as well to 22 this month. And our ride checks are about the same as they were last month. You'll see the foot patrol hours is up at 124, as well as our auxiliary hours are almost reaching 50 there. And the last page is just the notable occurrences for your review, and pending any questions, that's our October 2023 report.
Thank you, Inspector. Any questions from the board members? Okay, just hopefully I see that Bill 48, I believe, has been passed. So hopefully we'll see some impact, and it makes your job somewhat better in the future. It's taken a long time to get some of those, something done about bail, and hopefully we see some fruit from that legislation in the near future. So, yeah. Your worship.
And thank you for bringing that up, that C-48. I know I want to thank members of the board here. And, we did have the opportunity that he was a parliamentary secretary to the Attorney General, did come to Tecumseh. We had an opportunity to sit down and voice our opinions. And I did receive a comment. I should forward it back to the board from the Attorney General, thanking council and the board for our resolution and certainly our meeting that we had with him. And to the chair's point, is I hope it really starts to show that if you're going to do the crime, you better do the time. And in that regards, and certainly to this day, we know that the police officers in particular are their front line, and you never know what to expect from morning till night on your shifts. And certainly we feel for the officers out there every time you walk to a car or to a house or anything, and in particular when it's another criminal that's been let out on same charges, and then it's kind of a revolving door, and whether it's property crimes or violent crimes and so forth. So I hope this Bill C-48 will put a little bit of teeth and meat to the law.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to that the OPP report for the month of October 2023 be received? Mayor McNamara, second by Mark Gomes. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, I guess they have my report. Myself and I guess all the board members here tonight attended the OAPSB zone meeting. I guess OAP, I'll get this right. OAPSB and the Police of Chiefs Association meeting in St. Thomas on November the 30th. It was an interesting meeting. We did have a presentation just by a company, Triton, about criminal record checks. And I guess I found it somewhat interesting that how criminal records checks have become this huge thing with the amount of obviously with private companies getting involved in the front ends and the back ends, and to the amount of resources that it takes with the numbers of some of these. So it was interesting to see. Sometimes you just there's a few checks coming in and it's not that big of a deal, but take it these days by the with companies and organizations and all that wanting them expeditiously, it's become quite the somewhat of a burden for the police services to have to deal with these. So it was interesting. And our zone rep, Ron LeClaire from the Ministry of the Solicitor General, he advised that the big news, I guess, is April the 1st, we're going live with the CSPA. And of course, in typical fashion, it's like going up a hill. We're crawling for a number of years. And all of a sudden, oh, now we've gone over the other side of the hill, and it's full speed ahead to have everything done by April the 1st. So quite the challenge certainly for in the Section 10 boards across the province, and for the municipalities of those Section 10 boards to get going on that. They also mentioned about thinking of for the Section 10s of a project manager or team leaders to try and get the process started, and that emphasized a number of times that the municipalities were responsible for the formulation of the new detachment boards. And but they did say that there was no hammer over top of us anyway, so do your best and hopefully we'll get as far as we can. And again, there's no regulations for a lot of these particular things, like even choosing, I think, community reps. There's not a regulation in there about that, so it's challenging to say the least. On our end at the OACP, we had Lisa Darling again go over about the April 1st. There's a presentation regarding remuneration that certainly the boards have to be considered, like what are for the being members of the OACP. And the amount, there's the new training, and I guess again, she stressed too that if, as soon as any members can be selected to the new board, because there's mandatory training that has to be done, and hopefully they can even begin that and have their training done before April the 1st for the initial training. She also mentioned too that there's a working group on the WSIB, which I can imagine is a huge issue in the province of Ontario to try and deal with right now. I guess the training, generally, the initial training will be on inclusivity training, and then the roles and responsibilities will be the first training that's mandatory for board members to undertake. They also suggested the need for somebody to attend the 27th and 28th of February summit. Looking at it, it somewhat leans more towards the 31 boards. But anyway, they were trying to definitely promote that. And again, they're asking municipalities to identify the municipal reps for the boards. I guess that's approximately what, generally speaking, what it entailed. I don't know if any of the other members that were with me saw anything else at the meeting. Yeah, and it's well hosted by St. Thomas, and it was nice to see an old train station that had been renovated, especially the age of that particular one there. Very nice, well hosted. My kudos to them. So that being said, could I get a motion to accept the vice chair's verbal report on the OAPSB Zone 6 meeting held on November the 30th, 2023, St. Thomas, Ontario? And I'll make that motion. Can I get a seconder? Rick? And all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Communications, there are no communications and action required presented to the board. We have no communications for information purposes. There's no old business before the board. And I guess new business is the proposed meeting schedule that's been provided, that being the meeting dates of February the 5th, April the 15th, June the 17th, September the 16th, November the 4th, and December the 2nd. I guess my only comment would be with the change of April 1st, do we go ahead, and I guess because April 1st is still, who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, just thank you. That being said, then can I get a motion to accept that? Mayor McNamara, second by Mark Holmes. All in favor? Carried. Does anybody else have any other new business they'd like to bring before the board? Hearing nothing. Our next meeting is February the 5th at 4:30 p.m. And I do mention that we do have our Christmas dinner. Hope to see everybody there. Thank you very much for all the work that's been done, put that together. So it was like last year again, it'll be a nice, great time, but we look forward to it. So can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting, please? Councillor Tonnell? Good enough?
I've had worse.
Okay, I'm trying. Secondary, Mayor McNamara, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.